Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the Guyana Dialogue. As you know, Guyana Dialogue is being funded, this program being funded by well-known business executive and philanthropist, Mr. Dave Narayan of Dave Vessian Imports Limited. The program is being put together by a group of Guyanese resident in the United States, Canada, the UK, the Caribbean, and Guyana. Today, we have our guest, Mr. Rafeek, who is the president of the Guyana Manufacturing Services Association and one of the leading business executives in Guyana. He will give us a breakdown of the role of the private sector in the economic and social development of Guyana. And he will tell us specifically what his company is doing in the development area. Our panelists today are Dr. Sanjay Ramkisoon, who is a
Right.
medical heart specialist by profession, Professor Muniram Budu, who is a civil and structural engineer,
Hello.
and former professor of University of Arizona, and we expect it to be joined later by Dr. Vishnu Bisram, the international journalist.
Oh, I'm here. I'm here.
Oh,
Mhm.
he's here.
Mhm.
And our guest today is Mr. Rafeek. Now, it has always been said that the engine of economic growth is the private sector. The private sector plays a very crucial role in most economies in the West. And Mr. Rafeek is the chief executive officer of the Duravilla homes and the durable wood products. He's intimately connected or has intimate knowledge of the private sector and the manufacturing of homes that he will talk about. We happened to visit one of his projects in Yarracabra, where he's building homes for the single mothers. He will talk more about that because they're doing some expansion to that product. But before we go into details, I would like Mr. Khan, if you can give us a little profile of the work you're doing and then tell us briefly how it fits into the economic and social plan of the government.
Thank you, Dr. Singh, and it's a pleasure to always be on this dialogue with the esteemed panelists, and of course, your wonderful audience would not have been possible without them. Faithfully listening to your show every week and presenting what Guyana is becoming, and some parts I would say has already become. As you know, we are so blessed as a country with amazing, bountiful natural resources in Guyana. Part of my sector for the last 25 years has been timber. So I'm in the forestry sector, and most of my, I would say, the last 20 years, I've been focused mainly in exports. Now we're doing a lot more domestic sales. Um, the international world appreciates and love Guyana timber products, and primarily for heavy construction, civil jobs projects from the Middle East, Europe, the Asia Pacific Islands, United States, right in New York, of course, and in Miami, the Caribbean. All these are destinations we have shipped our products to. So Durable Wood Products was the first company that I founded, and that company stemmed from the United States. I'm part of the diaspora, went back to Guyana and started this business. I first started buying and sell timber products from Brazil, Suriname, and Guyana, and then eventually just focused on Guyana. I must say, over the last 25 years, I have seen an amazing transformation. And in the last, let's say, 8 years or so, we've seen an acceleration of that transformation process. Actually, in the last 6 years, we have seen growth in double digits for all sectors of the economy, all the traditional sectors. I'm not here to talk about oil and gas, but everyone knows what's happening in oil and gas. But timber products, as you know and may have recalled, Guyana used to export a lot of its logs to India and to China. Now we have reduced that export and doing more value-added products. The export is less than overall export is less than 40% for logs and raw material. We're now doing primarily value added for domestic and export consumption. But in terms of what I would have, my journey through the entire process in moving our company from trading to now manufacturing, and not just manufacturing a product for international market, but for our domestic market, there comes a company called Duravilla Homes. That was a product out of durable wood products. We produce many products. We produce roofing shingles, a wood called Malva, and we make roofing shingles, brand called Sandura Shingles. And then we started putting an entire house in the box in a container and exporting that flat pack and shipping to destinations in the Caribbean. But then comes Guyana's massive demand, and our company then repositioned itself not just to do export, but to help take our amazing product into the consumer hands in Guyana. So our company has embarked in a project 2.5 years ago. Many have heard of it, the Single Mothers Project, which we'll talk more about and how that is actually an amazing story to see what will happen with those homeowners and what they will be doing in agriculture. But that's in a nutshell about durable wood products and Duravilla Homes. We have been transforming from taking a natural resource and upping the value stream to those products in making amazing products in Guyana, low carbon footprint, locally produced, less emissions from concrete and steel in utilizing what we have. And many of us, our parents, our grandparents, our great grandparents grew up in a timber home. And we have seen many of those homes, or they're still standing. So, and I would like to talk a little bit about the value of a timber home comparing to some of the concrete structures and even steel structures you see today. But I'll pause for the moment and await your
Mhm.
further question.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much for that introduction. You see, the problem, if you look at the newspapers, social media, people only talk about political issues and things that are very sensational to capture their attention. They hardly know about the work that your company does and other companies, medium sized and large scale companies, their contribution. This has been suppressed or pushed aside by the mainstream media. They don't focus on that. They only focus on things that can sell the story or excite the public imagination. So I'm glad that we can have you and other people coming on this program and talk about the economic and social development and your contribution, etc. Now I'm going to pass you over to it's just I just a note that I have here 400, over 492,000 cubic meters of timber was reaped for 2025. I don't know how you translate that or what, but I go down. Let's go down the line. Dr. Sanjay, your comment, and then we move to Dr. Vishnu and Dr. and Professor Budu. Any question or clarification at this point?
Good afternoon, Mr. Khan, and good afternoon to all our viewers, my panelists. Good afternoon as well. Mr. Khan, first, I'd like to congratulate you and your company for doing an excellent job, seeing the value of timber in our country and seeing the value of the local market. So, congratulations and kudos to you and your company for doing such a good job in Guyana.
Thank you.
I don't have a question at this point, but just a quick statement to throw it out there. I did grow up in Crawford Creek, and at that time, there was at least 10 to 12 sawmills in Crawford Creek. Now, with your frame mind and the work that you and your company is doing, how is this affecting the production of from the sawmills? Um, if you can talk a little bit about that
Yeah.
later. And also, I know you're doing these quote unquote prefab homes. How durable are they in terms of hurricane proof, earthquake proof, and all these things? If you could enlighten all of us later. Thank you.
I could jump into those questions. They're great questions for our listeners as well. The Dr. Tara just mentioned the annual production for the last year was 490,000 cubic meters. Let me put that into context. That 490,000 cubic meter is trees that were cut and then converted into products. Some of it went into logs to make plywood. Some of it went to logs for export, and some for domestic consumption and other products. The total allowable cut in our forests is approximately 1.2 million cubic meters annual allowable cut while having a sustainable logging practice, while having a sustainable forest. And Guyana, you probably would have heard or read that we are among the lowest deforestation country in the entire world, less than half of 1%, just very, very low. So even with the allowable cut that we have and what we're producing now, we are meeting our sustainable goals every single year. We're net zero, below net zero. The fact here, though, we're not doing enough in value added at this point. So if we're just doing a third of our allowable cut, that shows that the forest needs to be utilized even more. We need to have more companies coming on board and doing what Duravilla Homes, Durable Products are doing, because the demand is exceeding far more than we can actually produce as a company. We're importing still quite a bit for construction products. And you mentioned about the production rate. The production rate, while we have an increasing number of sawmills in Barbies, in Essequibo, in Georgetown, in Yarra Cabra, every single major region of the country, you're seeing growth. But we need more to keep up with the pace of demand, but also to utilize the allowable resources given to us to produce. I know we're talking about timber, but if you look at bauxite, if you look at stone, we were importing stone at one time. We were not importing sand, but we're increasing our production rate for stone. Hopefully one day we'll start producing granite in the country. But these are resources that we need to start utilizing as we grow out the country, build out the country. In terms of Crabrook Creek, I mean, there's sawmillers. There are many that's first and second generation. Now you have third generation. A lot of the generation is moving into other sectors, and many of them are not as interested in sawmilling, perhaps when you were living in Crabrook Creek. Some of those companies are now making furniture and so on, but we want to encourage the talents that are there to continue to pursue this because it is a lucrative industry and it's a growing industry. In terms of durability, to answer your second question for homes, building homes using wood when you grew up in the days, they were cured, they were treated, and they were cut properly and so on. If you continue to do that, you will not have any issues. So we want to encourage companies to continue to use timber, but use timber wisely. Consumer needs to be educated to make sure that they're using timber that is properly treated, that is properly dried if you're using it indoor. There's some basic things about timber that I see people are using that sometimes they complain, well, why is the wood not lasting? Why is the home not lasting? because many times we compromise. The contractors at times go and buy inferior quality and then put it into your home. So consumers need to be educated. The construction sector is growing at a rapid pace. We'll talk about that later on. I mean, 8,000 homes alone is just government procurement. So what we're looking at is that we need to have more consumer, not just waiting on the government to educate them. We go to, let's say, Home Depot in the United States, and we go buy lumber. At the same time, you have to educate yourself what's the number one, number two, number three grade, and what's the suitable application. So we find a lot of times homeowners are relying on the contractors for making the decisions for them. And a lot of times compromises happen, and then they get poor quality homes. So timber is there to last. Timber is there for last for generations if used well, if built well. Thank you for those two
All right,
questions.
thank you, Dr. Vish.
Yeah, I just have one question. There are a lot of containers all over Guyana, and more companies and even people containers as homes and offices. I was thinking of whether your company is involved in any kind of retrofitting of containers to make them habitable, useful for offices and as home dwellings.
I, I appreciate that question, and I may give you an answer that perhaps you may not like. Look, a container house is a trendy something, converting container to homes. And we see a lot of container homes, like not just out of container, but container style looking homes in that size coming into Guyana. And people are sometimes buying them because they want it fast, it is cheap, it's affordable. But to me, it is not meant to be a residential home. It is meant to be a home to last for a period of time. And persons are making decisions to go buy use a container to build a home because it's cheap, but sometimes it's very hot. It doesn't last long. It corrodes. There's a lot of variables. I'm not saying that it is not a good idea, but it's not a suitable idea for a standard residential house. And real estate cost for land, as you know, it's it's increasing. The government is subsidizing land, but doesn't mean you get that land and you're going to put a container house on that land. Add value to your land by putting down a structure that will last for generations and generations, and that will get you more appraised value. So those are some brief comments about container homes, because it doesn't really even add value to our GDP in terms of manufacturing. We import these container homes and then we use it. But what does it do for our economy? Everything comes in, import, and then goes onto the land. All we do is foundation work, and that's it. So I would personally like to advocate more for traditional built homes. Even persons who doesn't want a timber home, build a concrete home. We have sand, we have stone cheap. We import our steel and we build our homes. But using imported, prefabricated, complete structures like a container home is small, it's not as warm, it's not as inviting, but it's only for a period of time it will last.
But as you know, it's springing up all over the country. I've seen them everywhere virtually, including more as offices as well. Will you consider um, not building container homes, but something similar with your wood and timber?
Okay, so for office application, and there's a lot of building out happening in Guyana, and there's a great need for temporary offices, because when those projects are ended, those container homes are easily to be picked up and moved. But as a company, what we would like to do is using our precious timber to soften the look of companies who wishes to use a container type home or office. Um, we would not be able to utilize our wood to build out a container type of house, because It will be slower. It's not meant for that. But we do have another building system is coming on board, which I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing for the digital schools, Guyana digital schools, classrooms, and that is a combination of steel and structurally insulated panels that we're using to build classrooms. And the same system could be used for building a container style home, but it is a structurally element that is 4-inch thick wall, 4-inch thick roof, and 6 inches, but it's built to last. I will give a lifetime warranty on these structures that we're using to build a container looking size structure if budget is the concern. But I don't think it will be appealing for a company as Duravilla Homes to promote a container and adapt it to housing.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Professor Buru?
I just want to add to this container homes issue. I think what you have said, Rafeek, is I support you in that answer. But I want to add that container home is a fad, and it's suitable for countries that have land and they're squeezed into very narrow areas, right? Guyana, it doesn't fit into our cultural uh, setup and environment. And I think if we are developing Guyana, right? We need to we need to be better than this container homes, and I think we have all the resources to do that. So let me ask you this question here. Guyana has traditionally, as you said, exported timber as a raw resource, but Duravilla has focused on adding value through the production of finished wood products and modular homes. Now, what lessons have you learned about building a successful value-added manufacturing industry in Ghana? And the reason I'm asking you, because I really am advocating that the real value for Guyana resources is value-added products. For example, in gold, diamond, and bauxite, it's the value added that we bring into the country that we really sustain it over long periods.
The lessons learned through the process, and it's been a long journey. It's been about 15 years for Duravilla Homes to actually made it to this point. It wasn't our main product, housing, but I must say the journey was very rewarding. The president saw the need for locally manufactured product, and the Eco Lodge was one of the first opportunity given to Guyanese companies to start building eco lodges in urban areas. And Duravilla Home, that was his first opportunity locally. Then comes the Single Mothers Project in Yarra, and the challenge was brought before us. How could we build, fabricate, produce not just a timber home, but with speed? Because we're producing 3 homes a day in factory, and we have to be able to construct cumulatively 1 house per day minimum. We need to accelerate that. While we can produce 3, 4 a day in factory, we want to be able to build 3, 4 a day inland. But the journey has been an amazing one, because through the journey, we realize without automation, we will never really meet our ultimate goal, because labor costs has literally doubled in the construction sector. Doubled. The skills that we used to get before, we're not getting them anymore, because they're busy with the entire building out of other sectors in construction in the country. A lot of civil works, a lot of commercial buildings, a lot of port and road construction are happening. So we've got to automate, and our company will be left behind if we do not automate. And this is where we're now accelerating that process to get investments into our company, and even welcoming investors to come on board and join us in this amazing journey. So skills, lessons learned, it's a challenge and continuing. But let me talk a little bit more about skills. Plumbers, electricians, tilers, these are areas that that is actually very challenging. We prefer to hire out those skills as subcontractors like they do around the world, and they provide these skills in our home. We're having to train in-house people to do electrical, plumbing, tiling, painting, right? These are skills that companies supposed to be doing. So I would like to strongly encourage persons to build out these skills, because they're going to be increasing more and more. So much so that we are trying to prefabricate as much in factory. So when we go on the job site, we can be more competitive. So we're not having to do a lot of those skills outdoor. But that has been a lesson learned in terms of skills, in terms of technology. We have to have more green chain. We have to have more automation, because if we don't, we will not be competitive, and we will not be as a company and resilient in terms of being able to undertake more homes in construction.
Now, Guyana has, very rich timber sources, as you have indicated. And in fact, we have some of the most beautiful timber in Guyana. And as you're well aware, I have done a lot of research in Guyana timber when I was in Guyana, right? But concrete is the preferred construction material for residential structures such as homes and apartments. Though Guyana imports cement,
Mhm.
we can have a long discussion on all the benefits of timber, such as sequestration of carbon and so on. Now, when you look at the Nordic countries such as Finland and Sweden, timber is a dominant building material and makes up more than 90% of the single family homes in these countries. I know Guyana is doing an excellent job in managing its forests and gets paid for standing trees through carbon credit. Do you think timber can be more widely used in residential construction as part of Guyana green development strategy?
Yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, my company, when we were doing mainly export, we sold our timber and selling our timber to the rich and famous around the world. That's who buy our timber. And right in Guyana, we don't recognize and realize that these products are accessible locally. And there's a lot of small businesses, small operators, that stakeholders that I would like to see coming up more into growing their businesses by using more timber products and selling it. The consumer wants it, but the consumer is not getting what they're seeking. They're not getting the volume, the quantity, not getting the quality. They're not getting the right furniture out of these products. They're not getting the right amount of doors, because we need more companies manufacturing and doing what we're doing. And I would like to talk later on, and maybe I can jump right into it here, about clusters. You've perhaps heard the word clusters before. So how do we attain the goal in terms of expanding manufacturing through the utilization of natural resources without relying on big companies alone doing it? So specialization is important. And let's say we take a kitchen cabinet, for example. A kitchen cabinet has many parts. You have drawers, you have doors, you have the box itself. You can have companies within a cluster. One of them just specializes in making drawers by the thousands every month.
Mm-hmm.
One making the doors for the cabinets. Let's talk about furniture. A company can be just specialized in making chairs alone, one making tables, one making bed. So the idea for us to accelerate the process for industry development and growth and manufacturing of value added is not having one company doing everything, because you lose your specialization. You wouldn't be able to meet your demand, but is to be able to build out clusters in our economy. And same thing goes, as a matter of fact, for any other natural resource product, especially traditional products. Agriculture, the same way. The not everyone catching fish, for example, is supposed to be processing the fish, right? So the idea here is specialization, building out clusters in economic zones, building out industries whereby you're having companies going out and just having a site whereby you have companies of similar minds, similar vision, and then you have the buyers going to that location and seeing and witnessing for themselves the sustainability of the production, the compliance, the code of practice, the health and safety. And even when they pay their money for the product, they are able to inspect it right there within that value chain and within that right ecosystem of everything happening there within clusters. And then within the cluster, you will have a special purpose vehicle, SPV, or an anchor company that is now helping to facilitate the entire process by streamlining the orders and the marketing and the financing and so on. And then you have government playing their role in facilitating the land, the infrastructure, the compliance, and so on and so on. So great question. And in terms of utilization of concrete has its place. Yes, we are importing cement. There's a lot of products that you see cement and concrete going into, but timber will always be needed to soften, beautify any home. It is warm, it's friendly, even if you're not using it for your superstructure. And I'm not saying use timber for all your superstructure. It's expensive, right? And it's slower in some aspect. And if it's not treated well, then you will have challenges. But the whole idea here is that we want to see more utilization of our wooden products. And how do we reduce waste? We reduce waste by having more value added products. Broomsticks, for example, axe handles. Look, we're importing these items into Guyana. Simple things as broomsticks and axe handles that you can have small cottage industries and smaller persons making these products from our wood waste. So picture frames, we're importing picture frames. Could we not make picture frames? I'm just talking about little products that doesn't take a lot of money to go into. So we want to encourage smaller companies, entrepreneurs who are looking to start their new businesses and so on, to come on board with manufacturing, whether it's furniture, or whether it's the wood sector or any sector. Use our natural resources and start making value-added products.
All right.
Who's championing these clusters?
Hold on, Professor Boudou. I'll come back to you after the break. We have to take a break now. Okay, we are back. Professor Boudou, continue that question.
Yeah. Who is championing this cluster? I think it's a great idea, and because it involves a lot more people, the government, right? It involves financial resources, right? And it has to be led by visionary, right? People see the vision, right, and champion it in such a way that it actually becomes a reality.
I appreciate you asking that question. I am personally championing this. And through the Guyana Manufacturing and Services Association, I have been advocating for companies within our Manufacturers Association to join in on the journey. We have made great progress, and perhaps you would have heard years ago about the competitiveness strategy. Guyana's had one. Many African countries have had one, developing countries. And we have learned, lessons have taught us that, clusters is a great way to bring down costs and get all stakeholders involved, especially the small stakeholders. So this has been a major mission for me in terms of bringing it to reality. Just like how Duravilla Homes came to reality, I'm championing this to be able to see how we can bring together a dozen companies in a cluster as the first pilot project. Let's say we get a dozen companies or even 10 companies, but these are not new companies. These has to be 10 companies who've had some experience in actually making products, but you bring them into an ecosystem where they be able to have lower cost in rent overhead, electricity costs, security costs, and so on and so on, and even raw material cost. The GMSA has advocated for this through the Ministry of Natural Resources and by extension, the Guyana Forestry Commission. So the Ministry of Natural Resources and GF's Guyana Forestry Commission said they like it. So they are now suggesting that they take a portion of land on the highway, 20 acres land that was once slated for a consolidated log yard, and then converting that to consolidated timber yard, and that timber yard now converting it more to a value added yard. And then the EU government, who has been monitoring Guyana's initiative for sustainability, and the UK, but primarily we have signed on to what you call the voluntary partnership agreement about a decade ago to get what you call the FLECT license. It's a license that proves to the international world that we are, in fact, a very sustainable country, and our sector, our forestry sector, is operating with high standards. So we have that already, but we had to prove that. So the EU has embarked in supporting this cluster. And through the FAO initiative, they've done a study through the Forest Governance Partnership. There's a whole initiative whereby they're using the umbrella of the initiative funded through the FAO and the EU to be able to facilitate this cluster initiative and the study. They have done the study with furniture. The feasibility study is done. So we're not just going blindly and do furniture. We have done a study. We have done a study through the GMSA as well with the wood waste. It's called a wood residue study. So we have bankable documents to show that if we were to utilize our wood waste into other products in making furniture and so on, how better we will be as increasing our GDP, reducing our waste, and increasing our production for exports as well. So information would have been presented, and now the donors, international donors, are looking at it. The banks are looking at it, and the government of Guyana, they're looking at it. And we're hoping that before the end of this year, it will then move to the next direction. One more thing I want to tell you about clusters. We have had support, again, through the EU to be able to do this value chain studies. So we're having, through the GMSA, Guyana Manufacturing Service Association, to train at least 30 companies to help them to understand financing, better business planning, and so on, to be able to accelerate their business. It's called an accelerator program through the CLBD, Center of Local Business Development, in partnership with the Guyana government and the EU.
Okay, let me just, before I pass on to Dr. Sanjay, I just want to clarify the container homes, from whom, which country we import these container homes?
These homes are mainly manufactured in China that comes into Guyana, most of the container homes, if not all of them.
And do the Bureau of Standards check them out to see that they meet minimum standards for habitation for people to live in?
That's a good question. I don't know if that is a part of the criteria for the Bureau's of Standards to check, like they would do for food and other types of products. But it's something I can follow up and look into. But to my knowledge, no.
And the homes of Yarra Cabra up the Linden Highway that you're building for single mothers, you have an idea of the estimated cost for building these homes I think you have a shade house behind each home as well in progress.
Yes, the Shade House project is by far to me an amazing story. And like you said early in your program, and a lot of viewers are watching excitement in social media and a lot of noise and things that carries a lot of negative stories about Guyana. Let me tell you, a lot is happening behind the scenes and through the GMSA and through companies. One of those such stories is what the president, Dr. Irfan Ali, would have initiated. His vision is making housing affordable in the country. I'm not just saying this because I admire what our president is doing, but I'm telling you, what the story is that the government is making subsidizing the cost of land, making land affordable. But they went a step further to be able to create a homestead project in Yarkabra at Heidi Park, and that is a 500 homes initiative. Is the first of its kind that Duravilla is embarking to build the first 200 homes. And our idea here is that not our idea, sorry, the government's idea is using a product locally manufactured to construct these homes. And when you see these homes, they're beautiful. They're not just small 600 square feet homes, two bedroom, that's what it is. But when you look at it, what they're paying for these homes, like you asked the cost, what is the cost? What is the cost to the consumer? For 7,035,000 US dollars, about 7 million Guyana dollars, they're getting a house on land, complete house with kitchen cabinets, um, full bath for electrical, plumbing, and on top of that, they're getting a shade house in their backyard, 20 by 40 shade house. So it's a unique project whereby these single mothers will then have their homes and they have a supplemental income that will help pay for their mortgages. The government is not just giving a handout and say, "Oh, you have free land." They're selling a house, but they've already brought down the mortgage rates so low. I don't think it can get any lower than 3% or 3.5%. Banks are competing for that rate. I saw it came down from 4 to 3.5, and now I'm hearing about 3%. But the idea here is further to that, they now have a shade house in their backyard that they don't have to go pay for. It comes with their homes. And then the government is going to further help them through NARI, through the Ministry of Agriculture, to teach them how to plant cash crops, we call it, to get quick turnover, monthly turnover, celery, pepper, thyme, whatever it might be, and sell those products back through some type of co-op. All of that is preparing to happen soon. But I believe within the next, I would say, 3 to 6 months, you will be able to visit the complete shade house at these homes in Guyana.
Mhm. Thank you. Just one quick thing. You made mention to FAO. I just want the listeners to know FAO means what?
FAO is food and and
Agriculture organization, right?
organization. Yes, I
Right.
went blank there from
Okay.
the food and
Dr.
agriculture.
Sanjay.
Thank you very much. The speed of development in Guyana and everyone having an opportunity of owning a house and a home is very refreshing, and it makes me feel very pleased and happy, proud to be a Guyanese with all the initiatives that's happening. Regarding your cluster that you're initiating and embarking, um, would you be giving out concessions for some of the companies and assisting in finances, or that hasn't been thought out as yet? I
Well,
know you spoke about skill training.
yeah. So as a company, we're the contractor for for the initiative. So it's not our home, but the opportunity for financing will come through the Guyana Development Bank that is just launched, and now upscaling for the local banks to actually take that process even further. But but you're right. These companies who are looking to start their small business, they're going to need some type of funding. That funding is actually being streamlined. That you've probably heard $3 million. You can a company without no collateral can
Right.
actually go and borrow. As a matter of fact, now they have a home, they have equity in their home. They can even borrow upon. Guyanese typically are reluctant to borrowing, and I would like to encourage borrowing if you're starting a business. You shouldn't just go take equity from your home and just buy something that doesn't add value or appreciate. If it's going to depreciate, I would not encourage it. But if you know from your heart that this business will make sense and it will generate income, that house that that homeowner is getting, buying at $35,000 in Guyana, when they go to the bank, their appreciated value is a minimum of 3 times that amount, if not 4 or 5 times more. So even the land by itself without a house, they have tremendous equity, 10 times the amount of equity on their land alone. So my suggestion is anyone seeking to start a small business, access to finance and capital, affordable capital, used to be a challenge for small businesses now, right? So those who would have received a home or purchased a home, that home is an asset to help you start your business. Then you have the Guyana Development Bank that, by the way, the Guyana Manufacturing Services Association will be helping smaller agro-processors, smaller farmers, smaller furniture makers to be able to prepare their companies with a proper business plan to be able to even borrow and be qualified for that development bank. The government of Guyana themselves will be helping companies to get access to documentation to prepare their financials to borrow from the fund or get the grant, whatever it may be. At the same time, though, you're going to have to get more. What do? Use this program with the Guyana Development Bank to be able to get your business in order. And then when you go to the bank, you have a more bankable project to be able to borrow more capital, whether it's 10, 20, 30 million Guyana dollars to expand on your agriculture product or even your homemade furniture product.
In the near future, do you see these small um, f- contributors being bought out by a bigger company?
No, as a matter of fact, the bigger companies need
The
the
small
value chain to be happening. A big company going and do certain things is going to really cause them to lose their focus. And like my company, for example, Duravilla Homes. I mean, we don't want to be making doors while we could go make doors. We don't want to be making kitchen cabinets. We don't want to be making windows. We want to, or roofing. We want to buy these from companies who can make them, right? But homes is a whole big product by itself. But in terms of bigger companies, let's say in the agro-processing space, there's a lot of farmers in Guyana who need to take their, whether it's peanut and or ginger or turmeric and so on into the value chain and producing them and taking them to market. There's a big demand for juice in Guyana. You'd be surprised to see how much pulp we're importing in the country for passion fruit,
Mm-hmm.
for cherry, right? Let's take an example, dragon fruit. You all know the price of a dragon fruit. I don't remember it off my head, but dragon fruit is one of the most expensive fruit you can find in Guyana. And guess what? You just stick it in the sandy soil and it is resilient. It grows in a vine and you get dragon fruit, right? Look, these are simple backyard products that you could be growing in the condition and the soil that we have along the highway in many parts. So what I'm trying to say here is that companies they have small businesses, they have access to finance. Now, if you're willing to, I'm telling you, the market opportunities are there. You've seen a shortage of chicken, for example. We need people doing more, hatching more chickens and so on. There's shortage of eggs. We're importing eggs. I mean, these are low-hanging fruit opportunities that our businesses could be part of. Again, I'm not talking about just furniture or wood processing. Every sector of the economy in light manufacturing, which doesn't require huge, heavy automation and equipment, you could start from your backyard and doing some of these products and then using and tapping into government resources. Government is providing um, labels, packaging, refrigerator consolidation centers, and so on for companies. So I would say join the GMSA and learn about these products, or join any business support organization. The average persons who are seeking to go into business, pay a membership fee, be part of an organization, and learn about these benefits. The government wouldn't have the energy to go call up you and say, this is what we have. You have to go yourself and reach for knowledge, reach a network for funding and financing and support through other bigger companies.
So where there is a will, there is a way. You need
Absolutely.
initiation, you need motivation, you need some grit and determination.
Absolutely.
All right. Dr. Vishnu?
I got a question. You do a lot of building in your areas. Do you also accept contracts to put up buildings in private land, people's land, and so forth?
Yes. Our initial model as a company, because we had to focus on the economies of scale to bring down costs, was primarily selling to government. So we first took on the project selling to the government of Barbados. We're doing about 125 homes in Barbados now, and in Guyana, about 200 homes. So that was our business to government B2G business. Now we're looking to shift more to business and business to consumer. But the time is coming soon as we're getting ramped up with production, where we're looking for many companies who are seeking to have a second home or an Airbnb. We find people calling us who want to buy our homes and put it in their backyard. As a matter of fact, some person to get enough land. A guy called last year and purchased 4 of our 600 square feet house and put it in his backyard, and he's doing Airbnb. I mean, it's amazing to see how you can purchase one of our modular home that can be built in 1 month, warm, friendly, inviting, and you can start generating money out of it. A lot of people have land in the highway, so most definitely we are ready and able and willing to sell to individuals with their land, depending on their location in the country.
Good.
All right. Professor Buru?
Yeah. Rafeek, you have secured some regional opportunities in CARICOM. What did securing those opportunities teach you about standards, innovation, and scale required for Guyanese companies to compete in not only CARICOM, internationally? Because we have a lot of value in Guyana that we can bring to the national scene.
Absolutely. You know what is interesting? The opportunities that we have for exports, those companies, many of those companies are investing in Guyana. So the compliance and the standards has lifted quite a bit in terms of expectation. We will never, as Guyanese manufacturers, producers, get to where we need to be. We will be wiped out if we do not produce the standards. And I encourage every single Guyanese manufacturers and producers, aim high, achieve your standards, apply for your certification, ISO certification, the Made in Guyana certification. You cannot use a Made in Guyana mark, and many of your viewers probably don't know that. You cannot say your product was made in Guyana unless you have a Made in Guyana certification under the Ministry of Business and Commerce. They actually have an arm that actually certifies your product and give you your compliance. So without standards, and we have had a bad name, I must say, unfortunately, for many years, shipping inferior products to the Caribbean and to the world. But that is changing a lot. Look, a lot of international hotels in Guyana, they will not buy our furniture doors if our standards are not right. Okay? We have Ashley Furniture in Guyana now. Look at the imported furniture. We have Quartz, who is a major importer and distributor for furniture. So for them to buy our products, we've got to meet standards. For us to export to the region now, and Duravilla Homes have been exporting to the region. And what we have learned is that, look, we must be hurricane resilient and resistant for our homes. We had to meet a category 3 minimum for hurricane. Our homes will exceed a category 3, but we cannot begin to sell to the Caribbean without meeting standards and compliance. We're now looking to sell to Jamaica. And speaking of Jamaica, many companies have seen Jamaica product is in almost every supermarket in America and around the world. Why? Because Jamaica built a strong brand. And that is where we want the Guyanese brand to become, hopefully one day, a household name. It's a household name in New York, in Toronto, in London, but take it to the world, So we can only do that with our businesses being determined to focus on quality, compliance, and consistency as well with regards to our products.
Mhm. Now, I noticed our time is nearly up, so I'm going to ask you one last question. If you could leave one message with young Guyanese entrepreneurs who want to help build the nation's future, what would that message be?
Believe
Mhm.
in Guyana that you have bountiful natural resources that can transform into amazing value added products, not just for Guyana, but the entire Caribbean, the amount of import. So youths today, young people today, and we've seen a lot of young people getting more energized and getting excited about digitalization, technology. But don't forget, there's an opportunity for building industries. Think about manufacturing because manufacturing creates wealth. A lot of other industry just transferring money from one media to the next. So I would like to encourage our young people to look at any type of manufacturing, especially light manufacturing in Guyana, pursue it and embrace technology at the same time to be able to be competitive.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I just want you, before we complete this program, to talk a little about your work. You're doing some work for the education sector as well as the health sector. If you can elaborate on that. You mentioned
The
about that.
Yes, absolutely. We're now into the fourth industrial revolution. Guyana is now digitalized across the country. Government is actually moving faster than private sector in terms of digitalization. So they have launched the school, the Guyana Digital School, throughout primary schools and high schools, secondary schools, sorry, across the country. They are building digital classrooms to teach children about technology and advancement into technology. So our company is now building homes using a different building system that's more resilient for classrooms, resilient to terms of maintenance because classrooms tend to need a lot of maintenance. So we're now using a structural insulated panel and steel and softening it with timber to build classrooms for the Guyana government. And then we're hoping to get involved with the hospitality hotel industry, and hoping soon to come will be multi-story buildings as well, not just one story, but multi-story eventually.
Have you worked? How many you have constructed so far in the education sector?
So we just undertook a project. There was an opportunity and expression of interest for digital classrooms, and we just built our first three digital classrooms: one in Maikoni, one Bushlot, and one in Tain. We didn't want to go too far out, but we would have used our system, our new system. We have a hybrid system, and that system now is in these classrooms. More to come. You're going to see on the news. We're waiting for the government to complete the internal layout of these classrooms with the technology and furnishings. As soon as that is finished, you're going to see more in the news about these
and
classrooms.
and your plans for the health sector.
And the health sector, the same thing. As you know, hospitals are very remote. The country, a lot of requirement for remote type of hospitality hospitals in the remote regions. So we have a system now that we can ship via air, via boat, easily deliver these panelized homes that we have coming to remote regions of Guyana.
Have you shipped any yet?
Not to the hinterlands yet. The farthest we went is Bury so far, but we have this coming up very soon.
Okay. All right. I'm going to ask the panelists to make your final comment. Dr. Sanjay.
Mr. Rafeek, thank you very much for all the hard work you're putting in, and I wish you good success. I'm so happy that you're dealing with children and digitalizing the school system as well as the healthcare system. That's something that really sits well with me. I'm very happy about that. It's time that we catch up to the rest of the world. So thanks to you and your company.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjay. Dr. Vishnu.
I echo Dr. Sanjay's sentiments.
Thank you.
Professor Budu.
Rafeek, you and I discussed matters of timber for what, 3 or 4 sessions now? Right?
Yes.
Now, if you were having this conversation, say 10 years from now, what achievement by, say, your company, Duravilla, and Guyana manufacturing sector would make you most proud?
To see if we can increase our exports by, in 10 years from now, we can prove it, by tripling our exports will make me more proud. And then secondly, to see greater consumption in furniture in Guyana. Less imports, more exports.
Okay. In the introduction, I actually do a little profile of your company. I didn't hear you say anything about employment. Can you just indicate how many people you have in your employ?
Yes, we have approximately 110 employees in our company with Durable Products and Duravilla Homes together.
All right. Thank you very much for this very stimulating discussion. And I'll ask you to make your closing statement.
It's always a pleasure to be on the show, and I really appreciate the listeners just watching out for good stories through our manufacturers, because through the Guyana Manufacturing Services Association, there are many small companies. And this weekend in Guyana, there's something called the On-Cap Marketplace. It's something through agro-processors. We are going to see at the Guyana National Stadium, a lot of companies are going to be exhibiting their food and beverage products, and even health and wellness products. We're going to have over 150 companies participating, and it is free to all to go there. So those who are listening, share the good news about that On-Cap event happening this weekend coming.
All right. And thank you very much. Continue with the great work. You're a pioneer in the housing sector, and we want to recognize that in this program. And I want to thank our panelists, Dr. Sanjay Ramkisoon, Dr. Vishnu Bisram, and Professor Muniram Budu. Don't go off. We'll have a little chat when we go offline.
Thank you.